Hi everybody, how are you doing today? Welcome, it's the exclusive at Exclusively Exclusive. Today we're actually going to be addressing the temporary government reopening. The government will be reopening for approximately 3 weeks to allow relief for about 800,000 displaced workers, getting things organized and situated, let them be able to get to pay and so forth. That doesn't actually mean things are going to proceed the way everybody expects. It means there's been some type of agreement to disagree. Now, what this truly means is when you get everything you need situated within this check status, because imagine really recently if people are receiving government assistance and they got that pre-January pay, February pay of their stamps. Now, estimate that funds have already been depleted, and while government is opening, they're going to open government, let government release funds yet again, and then close government right back. That means if you missed it, you missed it. So, for those who don't understand what it is, get your tax returns done, get your documents done, get everything you should be getting done out of the way as soon as possible because it's not about us anymore, unfortunately. It's about left and rights and taking down the Federal Reserve. Who knows? There's too many possibilities, but what this says is you have to expect the unexpected. Is this a good thing that they kind of released it? I think yes, and I think no. Why? Yes, because it helps those that need it, like the workers, employees, and staff, and so forth, who have actually continued to go to work and deserve it. No, because of the simple fact that what is going to be interesting is imagine all the overtime people are going to try to attempt to put in if it's possible to get as many hours as possible. They're literally going to be living at work. So now it's going to be the opportunity for them to really maximize how they use the money the second time around because there's no guarantee this is over and done with at all. What can we do more than just saying, hey, pardon the noise, I'm trying to find the screen that's actually playing it. But as I'm saying, we get to a point now where we've got too much going on, especially regarding how people spend money, how people liquidate money, how people have expectations on buying expensive items and new releases rather than saving and making do with what you already have. We've been trained and we've been taken down a notch only to be teased again. Think of this as a teaser. This government reopening is a teaser. That's my view. It is an absolute teaser. Do not get tricked by it. On another note, pay attention to how stocks are moving, things are moving. Did it get reopened for our benefit or to protect his benefit or others? There's just too much going on. So there may be something people needed government to be reopened so things could occur and then close just so it could be a finality to it. Or are we going to drain the bank, the swamp even more? This is the lesson. Did government learn a lesson and have to make some changes, or did others learn how to do it without government? Because you'll have those still sitting there submitting paperwork, waiting for government to spend 3 weeks to catch up on back paperwork. That would be absolutely ridiculous and scary with their companies and foundations. So at this point, you're supposed to be looking at how to use any incoming grant funds, hoping you're still available for certain things. They're going to do so forth because you've got the food stamps coming. You've got a lot of things going on. So when we look at government shutdown, we say to ourselves, what was affected? Jobs, a lot of grants, foundations, programs, how easily people were cut off, supermarkets, shops who were doing the buy 10, $1, like a lot of deals, specials, people who were not exporting, exploiting the government It was basically tricks on you. You can't exploit a system that's in the process of crashing. So you see how when stock market crashes, it gets open, it takes almost 7 years for it to get back into place sometimes. So to get back to where it was to sustain and achieve and go back to growing back properly. So you look at yourself and say, are we going to slowly cripple the government so it can think it can just bring itself back up? Because it depends heavily on these tax returns. And is this a way to avoid impeachment and so forth? I don't really think I don't really see him getting impeached. Let's just be honest. I don't see President Trump getting impeached. Do I want him impeached? No. He's draining the swamp. Am I a Trump supporter? Yes and no. Am I a Hillary supporter? Yes and no. So I didn't so I didn't think it was important for me to the latter of the two. I think we need a country that's built on a demarc of two leaders. Two leaders. Honestly, three. A third opposing vote that has absolutely nothing. Of about three leading, like, honestly should be a panel. We have too many panels to get to one man who really can't make no choices sometimes. And when he can, he's gonna pull all nonstop. Difference with our past leaders is they were too scared to pull the stomp because a lot of their structure, income, and future depended on it. Trump is an independent subsidy. He is an independent structure of himself. So he can do what he chooses with and without us, the voters. You understand? And when I say that, don't take it too broad. When I say that, it means he made money before us. He made decisions before us. He's been watching how these decisions affect his business since then and how it's going to affect his children's businesses in future. So you have to look at why is he making certain moves and how are these moves going to be beneficial on a business entrepreneur aspect, his soul aspect, government aspect, whole wide aspect. Do we still need a government? If so, who is going to replace government? Not the founding president, because government had a structure. What structures are going to be put in place to change them? Because we see EBT crash a couple years ago, and then they transferred the name, I think, to Snap from Food. We try to keep up with all the names. I didn't have my research ready, so that's my fault. But what I'm trying to get to, because it's off subject, so that's why it wasn't ready. I don't want to be off subject. So let me get us back to subject and tell you why I brought that up. When the system crashed a couple of years ago, or a while ago, you have to look at the time on how so many people went crazy. And then you had a point where so much went on real quickly and everybody went to go shop. And then a whole supermarket got left having to put people to put work in and replace all the carts and aisles of unpurchased food. So now you have all these people ready to do their bidding and buy all these foods and do all this stuff. And these places are not making money. These overtimes are not going in. Supermarkets, all these places who've been, are we going into farmers market? Is this why a lot of, like, for instance, we have some towns that have programs like the Vine that find land and start building on it gardens so they can supply low cost to free food to the neighborhood. When you look at that type of system, is this our way of saying that we're getting more sensible, or we have something else going on that we have to be aware of, or are they testing new type of foods? Because look at foods that are not allowed in Europe, but we can sell here. Much less they don't allow all that genetically engineering production. Pardon me. Like, I don't see it as a very healthy thing. While it's done to expand, why can't we continue unless something is incorrect what's already going on? So I look at why would we need to do something like that in order to sustain what's been working naturally. So for me, to avoid that issue, I prefer to grow my groceries in the backyard, fruits and vegetables. So you can grow it in your house. But then there's other things that we have to look at, like, are we feeding the animals properly where they're giving us extra hormones and food, which is why we become more of an obese nation? Understand? Like, there's a lot of things going on into play. Are we living as long as people used to before, or less? You know, man was made. If we look at how man was made before stoves and fridges, how did they sustain to live long lives? At with the kennel, and you look at yourself and you say, because they were able to, they lit rocks and leaves, started fires with sticks. You look at a lot of these things that we may call caveman behavior, and honestly, it's more of a human instinct of survival. But are we doing things unnatural to survive? And do you have conservatives who have a point in saying, let's stop this nonsense, let's chill? But is it too late because we've already done so much destruction with the experiments to do so? Like, I look at winter right now. I stand outside and I see some snow. And to me, that's not snow. I go down to certain areas where they're usually 3 times or even different. And it's not, everything is different. And you can automatically see the changes. And you have to wonder, what are going to be the consequences for what we did to gain it? And what will be the consequences on how we sustain it, or if not? This is now, the government is interesting. You have SSI, SSB, you have Department of Social Services, you have the Federal Bureau of Investigations, you have so many different bureaus, so many different programs, grants, foundations, everything sustained on the government. Now, a lot of the new money that we use has been printed from 2006 and up. So you have to wonder, how can it be so easy to destroy the value of money printed prior? And you say to yourself, is money become that so? At the same time, some say it's for the protection of money, but people look at it. There's just so much going on, and you have to wonder yourself, what's enough? If I have the iPhone X, why do I need the iPhone X Plus? And they look the same. What's enough? What's the fine line in between? We have a generation now that's escaping reality, and we're in the middle of a government crisis, a national crisis. Because you have to understand, if the government truly does crash after this week, he's going to open up the government. He's going to let all these people file their taxes. He's going to let the government pay all these tax returns, and then he's going to shut it and freeze it. Now what happens is the government has spent even more money and no longer has. And you have all these people who are already getting cut off and separated, and they're already telling you there won't be anything going on in March. So while everybody thinks that for the next 3 weeks it's going to be great, it's honestly, that 4th and 5th week is going to be a problem if it's not situated. And I don't see it being situated because, no, it's not about the war. As a business situation, it's not about the war. This is an important time right now where people are so busy and so relaxed in society that they're not paying attention to what's really about to come on. The housing market, it's already had a crash. Stock market had a crash. You understand? There's so many crashes going on. Informants complaining they're not getting paid for the FBI and all these other people. Like, so you have to say to yourself, what goes on now? Do the informants turn to the drug dealers to get paid? Do the other countries now come in because they know that we're down? Individuals who are interested in doing the work because they're not getting the money versus individuals who do the work because they love it. This is where you start to separate the weak from the strong, the fake from the real. Those who survive is because they've been preparing, and those who don't is because they failed to prepare. And in these next 3 weeks, if you're still not preparing or opened your eyes, and he doesn't open government fully, and it really does close, it's going to be worse because he's going to give out refunds to all these people who You don't even realize. I'm basically telling you at this point, pay attention. We as entrepreneurs get to our bookkeeping. Focus on making sure your papers are together, or your documents, your I, your P's, costs. Start looking into multiple streams of income. And what's going to be going on is you need to find ways to connect with your community, food drives, can drives, events, something where when others are failing, there's some type of warmth in the community for two reasons. One, we do not need riots. We do not need increased robbery. We do not need increased trouble based on individuals no longer getting their food stamps, Section 8, and or food. The government was still shut down. That means there's still no money. There's still back money to be paid. That means there's a lot of people with a lot of problems, and they're going to have to pick and choose who's worth getting paid and who's not. You have to figure out, do you fall into that category? Or do you want to be able to have your own money and your own situation separated? It's not saying that's going to prevent you from being a victim of the situation. It just says it limits some of the casualties that's going to come in the beginning versus the end. And when I say the beginning because if people are already starving and wondering how they're going to eat for right now, what do you think is going to happen 6 months from now if the government is prolonged to shut down even longer? Now, Trump is teasing. That's a tease. Let me give it back to them for 3 weeks. Give them paychecks, let them get back to normal, let them get comfortable. Let's see who falls for it. That's like saying, okay, you've been acting up at the job. I'm going to put you on probation and see how you're doing. You're going on probation on a temporary period to see what's going on. So you say, okay, I should have been fired, but now I still got my job. You might not, they may say, we're going to watch you for a few weeks, see how it goes. Meanwhile, you're saying, yep, I'm still good, I'm still here. Boom! You make one false move, you didn't pay attention, it was in the clause and you're terminated. Why? Because they were waiting, there could have been something that didn't allow them to do what they needed to do to prevent them from having to pay any extra casualties, workers' comp, unemployment, and so forth. So they needed to make sure that you re-violated and put yourself in another position to mess up in order for them to securely cut all ties. You understand me? I'm not going to keep this subject long. Now, the next thing I wanted to discuss is for those who do a lot of YouTubing, online marketing programs, and so forth. YouTube has made it a known that it will no longer be doing their shares because if you're aware, Google's been changing a lot of things and closing a lot of things out. So Google Plus, there's been some heavy discussion of it no longer being any information that's going to be beneficial. But so this way, when you're looking at Google, you're like, okay, what does that mean? What that means is there may no longer be any more Google Plus. Does that mean what happens to all your prior content previously and so forth? That is up for grabs in two ways. One, you have a lot of people who've been using social media to promote it, and social media has been going against each other so big. Google's literally extended itself a lot. A lot. It is a leader. It is a leader. Google owns YouTube. Bing owns its Power and Yahoo. Everyone is, they don't want the competition. They're buying the competition to run against each other. So Bing keeps Yahoo going, but you're my too. Google is there. Google is not worried about most. Google eats you up if it wants, but there were things that Google came in and tried to do to become the leader of social media with the Google Plus. Unfortunately, that was not the case, and among other things, it had to change. So we're gonna have to say shortly Google Plus goodbye. Not even that. There's actually a couple of programs that have taken a slow hit lately, and by taking a slow hit, it means their programs will no longer be active nor completing anymore. It does, it's weird because you say to yourself, what's going on here? What's going on here is a lot of companies were able to survive based off of odd activities, extra behaviors that they could get away with for so long. But to make a better profit, a lot more companies are now trying to nip that in the bud. You understand me? It's great for now, but it's not great for later. So what you have to say to yourself is, what does that mean? It means before people would use here to promote, they could go to YouTube, and YouTube would promote with the Google Plus. Then it would promote, LinkedIn, it promotes Yahoo, it promotes so many different, not Yahoo, Facebook, and so forth. But you have certain leaders that have their platforms for trending. And if your platform is not leading in trending, it is decreasing in value. And it's time now they're starting to pick apart all of those that no longer meet what's going on. Google is still a leader, of course, but Google may not need to exercise itself and stretch itself into certain platforms anymore due to the fact that it is so popular. You understand? It had Google, since it's launched this hub, is to compete against, of course, Alexa. Google competes. Google is a competitor, very competitive. Now, what you have to take a look at is, why is Google Plus closing? Who's it going to affect? Of course, it's putting it out of this misery since, unfortunately, due to low consumer following a security breach. Now, when it had the security breach, it affected over 500,000 users. And due to that, it's closing come April 2019. Now, when the bug leaked the account, it realized it had to start making changes. And mind you, it's been in business since 2012. That's 7 years. Google Plus has been at it. But when it comes to being a leader, it failed to breach. You understand? It failed to breach the social network capstone of saying, boom, buy Instagram, boom, buy Facebook, boom, buy LinkedIn. And one of the main reasons I believe that is because Google Plus didn't have a specific niche to certain how we do it. They were just social networks. It's like Instagram is all about straight mobile app social networking media, pictures, and you add your words to your pictures. You don't want to just hear no words. You have to have a picture or video, or you have to be dynamic and graphic. What Instagram is doing is that it's IGTV and its own marketing, so it means it can be a little bit of a headache for Google Plus even more. You understand? Because Instagram TV now is directly motivated to mobile users, and if you have Google, whose YouTube, what if Instagram TV started having creators? The creators are mostly businesses and people, but that's what they are. The YouTube creators are the similarity of Instagram TV creators for people making their own stuff going on. So what happens is you now have a little type of competition going on that can be a little problem. So Google has to focus this area on where it's really best at. You can't take the bug, the leak, the competition, and the low consumer interaction. You understand? The close is earlier, of course, than originally expected because of the fact that there was a possible discovery of a second data leak. So the close, has to be moved forward. Now, how does it impact the people who've been leaked? Honestly, it impacts a lot of different things because you got to understand, Google's a powerhouse. It powers emails, powers analytics, it powers apps, it's powerful. You understand? its API at one point exposed 52.5 million users, and so it recently, so it needed to push its kickoff. So you gotta understand, your first breach of Google was at 500K. The second breach was at 52.5 million users for API. That means you're doing too much, so you have to be more careful. With that, it means how many people, what do you use? What the API is, it tracks your behavior online, your access, your use, your purchasing. It tracks so much. So at this point, they had to start killing off streaming messages in streamlined messages in their own way. Allo, the company that streamlined messaging in its own unique way. Now, the privacy and the search engine, that was, and keeping people private, that was also something you have to look at, because Google Plus Google has failed to disclose the leaks in the first place, because they were hoping to just improve the API. But with the second breach, it's no choice. You have to shut down because there's no trust now. The first time would have said, okay, there's a breach, and explain it. The second time, what can you do? You have to move forward and say something's not right. Let's close it. The details, like most are saying, is sketchy, but all they're saying is the API was not operating as intended. So that's all we do know at this point. So all of those connected with Google Plus API has to be terminated. Thankfully, if you use more of your Google version, your Google Plus, I would say for right now, just temporarily close off anything you're logged into with your Google Plus. You can still use it Google Plus independently, but just close off anything it's logged into. Okay? Now you have to imagine, what if Google Chrome was this, like Google Chrome has everybody's information moving from place to place? What do? So at this point, I've got to say, start focusing on protecting your information and be careful of what you share on any platform. Not just Google Plus, not just Facebook, not just Instagram, anywhere online. Your Firefox, your browsers, Opera. At this point, we're moving so digital based that we can't keep track of where we put things or how we do it. We use our memory anymore to remember phone numbers. Like I myself, I don't like saving my contacts. Why? Because then I won't know your number. I prefer to memorize the number and know when that number is calling, that's you. So if I go somewhere and have to contact you, I still know your number. Is that a weird way to do it? Probably for most. Who wouldn't want to know the name? What if you need to know the name? Then you know what? I should memorize it. And that's coming hard because remember, I have multiple sclerosis. But that's one of the main reasons I have to do that, because I can't let my brain not push itself to the smack. And with that going, I would love to tell everyone, thank you for tuning in. I'm sorry I was going to do sponsors here, but I realized with this show, I'm not doing any sponsors for the moment. I would actually like to just keep on track for the conversation, because I know I have ads that come in, so I'd hate to throw in my own sponsors plus ads based on the software or what browsers you're using, because remember, we're on multiple streams and platforms, so they put their own ads in, each one of them. So I do want to thank you for listening and tuning in. If you're doing any sponsors, I'm going to do that on my other shows. So thank you again for all your support, and have yourself a very great day. I don't mean to cut off like this, but that's why I leave you for more to listen to. We're going to come back on these subjects some more, but I want you to think about this. Post your comments on what you think is going on Google. What are some ways you think you can keep your security safe? What are your thoughts on the subject of the government? What are your subjects on Google's breach and not releasing information? What kind of recommendations would you use to make your browsing, social media, and online more safe? It's a lot that I want to know, because it's our turn now to say, how do we protect ourselves? How do you make sure you can remember numbers when people contact you? Do you have an interested method that you may use? Great, share it. This has been V8 Exclusive on the radio, and thank you again for tuning in. Have yourself a blessed day.